Welcome back to the Common Application. Let's complete our application for Lewis and Clark College. Before I log in, I want to point out that I have gathered all of my materials, all the information that I know I'm going to need in order to apply, including making sure that I have my short answer response ready to go so I know what the question is, I've written my response, and I can copy and paste that when the time comes to fill that out. So I have everything I need up in front of me ready to go. Let's log in. And this will take me directly to my dashboard, which shows a list of all of the colleges and universities that I plan to apply to using the Common Application. And it has a note about where I'm at in the process. And so for Lewis and Clark, I'm still in progress. I can click on Show More Details, which will give me more details about where I'm at in the process. And it mentions here, there's a green check mark and it says complete next to the Common Application. And you'll remember that that's the big chunk of information that all of the colleges want in common. But each university has additional questions or sections that they want to make sure that we complete for responses that only they will get. And so I can start finishing my Lewis and Clark application by clicking on the first link that is in progress, and that is questions. And you'll notice that this looks just like it did as we were filling out the common part of the application. And on the left-hand side, there is a menu for, or headers for each of the sections that I still need to work on. Again, the questions on this page are being asked only by Lewis and Clark and are only going to go to Lewis and Clark when I answer them. That means that I'm probably going to answer some similar questions for each college or university that I'm applying to. For example, this first question about my preferred start term is one that probably every college is going to ask me. You will remember that the red star or asterisk means that this is a required question. Without that star or asterisk, the question becomes optional, but there still may be a good reason to answer an optional question, so we'll talk about those as we come to them. My preferred start term, you'll recall I am planning to graduate in the spring of 2021 and therefore enroll in the fall of 2021. The admission plan is asking me what kind of application deadline am I interested in? And so I have the choice between early action, early decision, and regular decision. Early, both early action and early decision means there's an earlier deadline and I will get my decision earlier. But there's a critical difference between these two types of applications. Early action means I apply early, I get my decision early, but I still have until the spring to make my final decision about where I choose to attend. And I can apply to as many other colleges or universities as I want to. Early decision, again, an early application deadline. I get my answer early, but I've already made my decision. By submitting an application under the early decision deadline, I'm telling the college, if I'm admitted, I promise to attend. And I am not applying to any other college early decision, and if I'm admitted, I will not apply to any other colleges because I have already made the decision this is where I want to go. Regular decision is a slightly later deadline. I submit my application, and by a date that the college will let me know, they will send me a decision, probably sometime in March. I will get my decision, and then I'll have until the decision deadline to decide which institution I'm planning to attend. So in my case, I'm applying regular decision, but you'll choose the one that is right for you. And then I have the question about where I want to live when I am going to Lewis and Clark. And there's a clue in here that I either need to live on campus, or if I'm going to live off campus, I have to do so with immediate family. And so that's a clue that Lewis and Clark requires students to live on campus their first year unless they are, unless their immediate family lives within the Portland area and they're going to live with them. Mine doesn't, so I'm going to choose on campus. And then I have the option to tell whether or not I plan to submit my test scores. Now, I already had an option to do this earlier, and I chose not to submit my test scores at that time. However, what this is saying is that if I had submitted my test scores while I was filling out the common application part of this, they actually wouldn't have seen those. They don't choose to see those self-reported test scores. And so they're asking now, do I want to upload my self-reported test scores for them to see? And of course, the answer is no. Okay, this question about financial aid, do I intend to apply for need-based financial aid? So in other words, do I intend to submit the FAFSA or the ORSA? And I'm going to choose to say yes here. If you are not applying for financial aid, you could say no. And then they want to know, they have some other options for me to help fund my education, and they want to know if I'm interested in any of those. So they have a forensic scholarship, so for speech and debate. They have a music scholarship, and they have other merit scholarships that might be available. If I am interested in any of those, I should indicate that now. Okay. Now they're asking if I've ever lived in another country for more than a year because of my parents' job, and the answer for me is no, but if the answer for you is yes, you'll want to choose that. And then here's my short answer, and of course I already knew that this was the short answer question. I already wrote my response, and so all I need to do is copy and paste that in here and move on. This next question, also required, is about whether or not I've ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony. And for me, the answer is no, but I want to provide a little bit of information here. Having a criminal record may not mean that you cannot be admitted to Lewis and Clark. You may very well still be able to be admitted. However, if you've been convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony and you answer untruthfully no, then you will definitely not be admitted. So this is a question that you need to answer truthfully regardless of what the response is, and your response may not have any bearing on your application or admission unless you're not truthful about it. So we go ahead and click continue. And we move on to wondering about what are we interested in studying when we arrive at Lewis and Clark. And so in this case, I'm going to scroll down to see what my various options are. And I am currently undecided, but I'm interested in the social sciences. And so I'm going to choose undecided social sciences. I know that at Lewis and Clark, I'm going to have the opportunity to explore my interests and choose the thing that I'm most interested in after I've taken a few classes. But I can also choose a second area, and I think I would like to do that. And I think I'd like to look and see in the social sciences, what are the kinds of things that are possible for me to study? And I think that I am particularly interested in sociology, so I will choose that. They're wondering if I'm interested in overseas or domestic off-campus study. So this is taking a semester or a year to study and live in another country or possibly in another city in the United States. Am I interested in doing that? Absolutely. So I'll say yes. If you are not interested, you can go ahead and say no. But if you're interested, by all means, check yes. And then they ask, where might I like to go? And they give me two choices of places that I think I might be interested in studying. And so you can see here all of the different options. And I think for me, I might be interested in Australia and New Zealand. And I might also be interested in going to East Africa. And click continue. Now they're wondering, have I ever submitted an application to Lewis and Clark College before? The answer is no. If your answer is yes, you could click that, and then they're going to ask, when did you do that? That's so that they can go back and find your previous application and match all of your paperwork together. But for me, the answer is no, so we'll go with that. And then they're interested in knowing, how did I learn about the college? And I have 10 options available. And they want to know which of these was most influential in my decision to apply. And so for me, I learned about Lewis and Clark from my friend. And I don't want to share their name, so I'm not going to in this case. And I can add another way that I know, because I also was able to talk to somebody at a college fair. And I don't know when I did that, so I'm not going to provide a date, but if I didn't remember, I could just go in and choose the date that was. It was probably sometime in 2018. So but I need to know more than that. And I don't know it, so I'm going to leave it blank. And that's about it. Those were the two most influential things. Now they want to know if it's possible or acceptable for them to contact me via my cell phone. So maybe they would call me or text me. And usually these are for reminders about deadlines or things that might be missing from my application or interesting things going on campus that they want to make sure I know about, or reminders to check my email, or just basic things related to the application process. I would like to have that kind of contact, and so I'm going to say, sure, please do contact me that way, and I will provide my phone number for them here. You don't have to say yes, so you're certainly welcome to say no if that makes sense for you. Now they want to know, have I ever been on campus before? And I can choose yes or no. Now in this case, if I choose yes, then they want to know when I visited, and I would provide some information about that visit. I haven't visited the campus, and so I'm going to say no, and those extra questions go away. I'm going to click continue, and they want to know some about my family. Now it is true, we did answer some questions already about our family in the common application part. These are questions specifically related to my family's relationship with Lewis and Clark. So for example, the first question, do I have any brothers and sisters who are also applying for undergraduate admission at Lewis and Clark this year? So I don't, but if you did, let's click on that to see what happens. If you did, they're going to ask you some information about them. They want to know their name, specifically, and your relationship, whether it's your brother or your sister. And you have the opportunity to add up to 5 of those siblings who are also applying. Now, I don't have that, so I'm going to say no. The reason that they want to know that is just to make sure that they are paying attention to all of the relationships that you have with the college as you're applying. I also have no relatives who've ever attended Lewis and Clark College, but as you might guess, if I were to click yes, they're going to ask me some additional questions about them. And so the answer for me, so here they're asking, how are they related to me? And I am going to say, I'm going to clear that and say no. And then, do I have any relatives who have ever worked for the college? And again, as you can imagine, if I say yes, there are some additional questions that are going to be asked here, but that is not true for me, so I will say no and click continue. Okay, so now I'm at a section about recommendations and FERPA. And because I've already worked on other colleges' supplemental information, some of this has already been done. So you can see these green check marks mean I've already taken care of this when I completed another college's application. But I want to talk about what we see here in case you haven't seen this yet before. So the FERPA release authorization. FERPA stands for Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Essentially, what this section is about is making it possible for your high school or any colleges that you've already attended to send your academic record and recommendations to the college without violating any of your privacy rights. So this is you giving permission to say, yes, please send those details or those records onto the college for purposes of my application. So the first time that you start filling out a supplement, you're going to see this section and you will have the opportunity to make some decisions. And I want to show you what they look like. The release authorization, when you click on that button, is going to give you some instructions that you'll definitely want to read and make sure that you understand them when you read them, including especially this section here for number 2, where you're going to have some advice about how to answer the question about waiving your right to see letters of recommendation. So that means when somebody writes a letter of recommendation for you, do you want to be able to see that letter, or are you okay with them sending it and you never seeing it? And there's some advice about why you might choose one option or the other. And when you get to this section, you're going to check a box to say, yes, I've read through all of this, I understand it, and then you'll click continue, and you'll have the opportunity to answer these additional questions, saying, for example, that when you click this box, all of the colleges, all of the high schools or colleges that you've ever attended are going to have permission to release your records. This is the section where you get to choose about your recommendation letters and whether or not you have the opportunity to see them. And then there's a very important section that says, once I make these decisions and I submit any single application, it's true for all of the colleges that I'm applying to, it applies to all of those. And as soon as I submit any application or anybody submits a letter of recommendation on my behalf, I can no longer change this anymore. So when you agree to that, you will click sign, date, and you will save. And then you'll be able to move on to recommendations. Now, this is also another piece where once you invite a recommender to work on your application with you, to write a recommendation, or in the case of your counselor, submit your school report form, once you've done that for one college, it's going to be in for all colleges. And so we've already invited this recommender or counselor to participate in this process, okay? But we haven't yet asked a teacher to participate, and so we'll do that one here. And the process for the counselor is very much like the process for the teacher, so this will look very familiar to you. But you can see that Lewis and Clark requires one teacher, and you have the option to ask 2 teachers to provide a letter of recommendation. We'll go with one, and so we'll click on Invite Teacher, and we will share an email address for that person and choose the subject that she teaches me, which is English. She's a Ms. and her name is, oh, not that. Okay, we fill that in. And then the question is, do we want this teacher to complete an evaluation for Lewis and Clark? Yes, absolutely I do. And I will invite her to do so. And now Common App will send an email to that teacher asking them to write a letter of recommendation for me. Okay. Now in this case, you'll see that this is what I had already invited somebody to provide a recommendation for me for a different institution, not a teacher, somebody else. And if I wanted their recommendation to also come to Lewis and Clark, then I could come down here and I could choose that person by clicking on this and assigning them to also submit their application to Lewis and Clark. I don't actually want that, so I'm going to remove it, but I do have that option. Okay. The advisor is somebody who isn't going to write a recommendation, but who I may want to let see my application so that they can provide me some feedback, so they have access to see what I've completed here. And so if I had a person like that, I could invite them and provide their name and email address there. But I currently want to check to make sure my counselor is going to submit the application or the school report and counselor recommendation, and I've asked my teacher to write an evaluation, and I am set and can click continue. And now we've come to the end. We've completed everything. We have 3 steps left. We need to review what we've done. We need to pay the application fee if there is one, and then submit the application. And this is a reminder that I wrote my personal essay as a part of the Common Application. Lewis and Clark requires it, and so it is going to go along with my application. So let's review and submit. The first thing that happens is that Common App provides a PDF of what the application looks like so that I can review it to make sure everything is true and accurate, because once I submit it, I've submitted. And so I can pull up that PDF in a larger screen so I can see it easily, or I could scroll through here. Either is fine. But once I have reviewed that, I need to click, yes, I've reviewed the copy, and it is set and ready to go. If it wasn't, then I could close out of here and use the menu options to go back and make the changes that I needed to make. And so I can click continue when I feel confident that this is the application I want to submit. There is no application fee to apply to Lewis and Clark, and so I am ready to continue for my signature and submission. Now there are a number of statements that I need to read very carefully and check the box next to after I confirm that I agree with these, and I will follow through on them. And so every time I read and I click that box for each of these, and I need to make sure that I'm clicking and agree to them. And then sign my name. Date it. And once I do that, I'm ready to click submit, and I have applied to Lewis and Clark College, and so have you. Congratulations.